the blog, Joyous Garden, and today I'm going to be answering some questions about growing peperomia plants, which are fabulous, attractive, easy care indoor plants. So there are 1,400 to 1,600 different types of peperomias. I believe there are probably around 25 to 35 that are commonly sold in the houseplant trade. So that is what I am going to be talking about because I don't know the other ones. So how this works, if you haven't seen my other Q&A videos, is I have more questions in the blog post, but I'm only going to answer one per category here just to keep it shorter. So for instance, the first one is exposure. Can peperomias grow in low light? Does a peperomia need direct sunlight? Do peperomias like sun or shade? And I'm only going to answer the first question. So if you want more information on this, head to the blog post, joyousgarden.com. It'll be in the description box down below, right where it says show more. So I'm going to bring out a couple other peperomia plants for the second half, but this is the caperata. This is the watermelon peperomia, very recognizable, and this is Peperomia Hope, which I'm going to be doing a blog post and care video coming up in a couple weeks, so stay tuned for that. So the first question is, can peperomias grow in low light? Well, it depends on your definition of low light. Low light is not no light. Some of them I found can tolerate low light better, but they won't grow. But their sweet spot is moderate light, a nice medium light exposure. The second question is, where do you put a peperomia in your home? I say any room is fine as long as it has a window or so, because they like that nice bright natural light, but to be out of direct sunlight, I say put your plants where you're going to enjoy them. I have quite a few of my peperomias in my kitchen because it has a lot of windows and I spend a lot of time there. Let's focus in on the plants here. Next one, how do you know if a peperomia needs water? You know, there's that fine line. It's hard to tell if it's too wet or too dry. But your plants will let you know, and also if the soil is wet, then they don't need water. If it's dry and they're drooping, then they do need water. I found that like this one, the Peperomia Hope, has thicker stems, as does the baby rubber plant. It can go drier longer, whereas this one will droop. Although their leaves are succulent like their leaves and stems, so it's better to err on the side of underwatering than overwatering with these plants. So the next question is, are peperomias slow growing? And yes, they can be. They're actually billed as slower growing plants. I find that they're more moderate, but I have a lot of windows in my home, and I also live in this sunny state in America, so Arizona, so the bright light really encourages their growth. So the next question also has to do with growing. Why is my peperomia not growing? A few reasons could be not enough light, the temperatures are too cold or too cool. Your peperomias like warmer temperatures, and perhaps it needs feeding. For a change of scene, we have switched over to the baby rubber plant, which is probably the most commonly sold one. Also comes in variegated forms. And the raindrop over here. My raindrop peperomia was beautiful and full, but then one of my cats knocked it over. So it has much more of a sculptural form now. So, do peperomias like to climb? Yes, many of them are actually vining or climbing in nature. For instance, the baby rubber plant here, the obtusifolia, climbs up trees in its native environment, whereas the caperata, the one that you saw before, does not climb. So yes, and the Peperomia Hope does climb up, and it also trails down. And you can see a bit of that with my baby rubber plant here, because you'll buy them upright and then they start to do this sort of thing over time, which I love. Next question is, what do you feed a peperomia? I feed it the same that I feed all my indoor tropical or subtropical plants. I start to feed them once I see new growth happening. And for us here, it is now it's the first week of March, but I've been fertilizing my plants. I fertilized them the first time 2 weeks ago in mid to end of February. So that's when I start. For you, that might be April. But I feed my plants probably 7 times. I feed them once a month through October, and I use 2 different types of fertilizers. I might throw a third in the mix too. I currently use Grow Big and Sea Grow, I think it's called. I don't use them combined. I use them alternatively. And for you, you may only need to fertilize yours 2 or 3 times a year. It just depends on your climate and how your plants are growing. How do you keep a peperomia from getting too leggy? And this can be a common occurrence with the baby rubber plant here. You can either tip prune or you can do a more aggressive pruning. And how you prune depends on how your plant, looks and how it's growing and what you want it to do. But tip pruning is effective. I would just take off this new growth here. It's nice and tender, so I could just pinch it off with my fingers, my fingernails, and that is one form of tip pruning. Can a peperomia grow in a terrarium? Yes, they are one of the best terrarium plants. They love high humidity, but that's the cool thing about them. I live in a very dry climate. I'm in the Arizona desert, and mine do fine, but they grow great in terrariums. And you can also find them usually in like a 3 to 4 inch size, which is a good size for a terrarium. And as I said, it's early March, so the birds are very active and very vocal now. Next question I got made me smile. What is growing out of my peperomia? And that is probably a flower. None of mine are in flower now, but they get these spikes that come up, and these really teeny tiny flowers that are hard to see grow off of the spike. So if you have something weird coming out of your peperomia that doesn't open up into a leaf, it is the flower stalk, the flower spike. All right, why are my peperomia leaves turning yellow? There are a few reasons why leaves turn yellow on plants, and a few common ones are it needs more sunlight, it needs more light, too much water, and with these, their leaves and stems are really thick and full of water, so if you water them too often, it's going to happen. Or perhaps it just needs some food. Final question I'm going to answer here is, are peperomias toxic to cats? And no, they are considered to be non-toxic to both cats and dogs according to the ASPCA website. So your pets can live in harmony. Just know that if they chew any plants, it can make them a bit sick, but they aren't toxic. There are lots of fun and attractive peperomias on the market with different leaf textures and shapes and colors, so I'm sure you can find one to love. I find them all to be easy care. And speaking of care, I've done posts and videos on different types of peperomia care, so I will leave the links for you in the description box. And I've done a repotting, and I've also done propagating the baby rubber plant, so there's a variety of things for you to look at to give you more information on these plants. So I hope you have found this video to be helpful. As I said, the next video coming up in 2 or 3 weeks is all about Peperomia Hope care, so stay tuned for that. I do videos about gardening both indoors and outdoors. I'd love to have you come back for more. I thank you for your likes, your subscribes, all that good stuff. It's much appreciated, and I will catch you in the next video. Bye.